Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm David from Senseye. We're a startup based in Austin, Texas, where this is our suit. I have a quick 5-minute pitch on the story of Senseye, and then we have a demo in the back, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. So Senseye started off originally about 7.5 years ago as my 10th grade high school science fair project. And in case you don't believe me, my Jewish mother found very embarrassing pictures to prove it. There we go. So the original idea behind the science fair project, I was working out of the nanotechnology lab at UC Irvine on a way to build normal computer processors, but we were using molecules of strawberry DNA instead of silicon. And the idea behind it was that if you ever wanted to build a computer chip small enough to fit inside of something like a contact lens, it would have to be able to operate on a microscopic scale. So long story short, built a prototype, showed this was possible, submitted it to the California State Science Fair where I grew up, where I got disqualified because they said either A, you stole this, or B, it's science fiction, but there's no way a high schooler figured this out. But I got very lucky. There was an admiral in the audience who at the time was serving as the director of the Office of Naval Research. And so he came up to me afterwards and basically said, screw these guys, I'll have a team of scientists at the Navy look at this instead. And so I ended up receiving an award and a grant from the Navy instead and started Senseye with the money from the Navy. At that same time, I came to the realization that as awesome as the bionic chip concept was, it was pretty worthless until we figured out the command and control mechanism around it, and so we shifted our attention to that. And the idea was that even though there's all these interfaces that already exist, the world's best command and control mechanism is the human brain. And so we just needed to figure out a way to tap into the brain wirelessly. And so over the past 4 or 5 years, with a team of 25 of us, that wireless access to the brain is essentially what we've built. And so the way it works, if you've ever heard the phrase, the eye is the window to the soul, that phrase is true. The iris of each of our eyes is comprised of several thousand muscle fibers, and all those muscle fibers are linked through the nervous system to the different lobes of the brain. And so by just using a video camera to look at the movements of the muscle fibers, we're able to wirelessly read out all the activity of the brain with the fidelity of a functional MRI. The only difference being, whereas a functional MRI is a giant $5 million magnet that takes up the size of the stage and you have to stick someone inside of it, we're able to use very small, cheap $500 cameras that we have in the back, and you can come get your brain scanned. And so while we're continuously doing more and more R&D to get access to more sections of the brain, we've built a couple of early applications around the pieces of the science that we've built and validated so far. So the primary application that we've deployed so far is what we call the targeted learning system, which we deployed with the Air Force. And what the Air Force has done is install these cameras inside of all their flight simulators and training aircraft. So as the student pilots are learning how to fly, you can see exactly what's going on inside of their brains. And the main things the Air Force was tracking was cognitive load, emotions, stress, and short and long-term memory access. And they essentially built a layer of AI that would take all of our neurological information as well as all the performance information from the aircraft, so the airspeeds and altitudes and so on and so forth, to custom build a syllabus around each of the students' brains. So instead of the syllabus saying everyone spends 5 hours learning how to fly a particular maneuver, it says trained to neurological proficiency. And whether it takes you 5 minutes or 3 hours, as soon as you've learned something and it's been saved in your brain, you can advance to the next task. And the ROI for the Air Force, the initial pilot training course that all pilots in the Air Force take is traditionally between 12 and 18 months. They successfully chopped that down to 6 months. So they're now training pilots in half the time at the same level of quality. The second application, which we built with Lloyd's of London, and is what we have in the back, is essentially an automated operational risk management platform. And so what this is, it's a camera and a screen. You go in front of it, and it gives you a red light or a green light if you're safe or not. And it's basically measuring 3 things. It's measuring, number 1, is there any alcohol or drugs in your system? Number 2, are you fatigued? And number 3, what we throw in the emotional or psychological fatigue category. So everything from are you depressed, to are you schizophrenic, to are you a psychopath, to are you stressed, and so on and so forth. And if you get a green light, you're safe and you're good to go. If you get a red light, you're not, but it'll tell you why. Was it because of alcohol versus drugs versus something else? And so I have a quick little video I'll play that I'll narrate. Or it could not play. That works too. Let's see. Okay, the video is going to be a problem child. Just come in the back later. Essentially, the system works. You go in front of it. It has a scan, and you get the answer. The application with Lloyd's is they're installing it on container ships and oil platforms. So before you start your shift, you go in front of it, and unless you're safe, you can't work that way that day. The behind-the-scenes part of it being, since we're able to essentially control for the human element of risk as the system is being deployed, the insurance cost is coming down for the folks who are deploying it. Beyond that, we have all sorts of other applications that we've deployed. Everything from using it in VR-based gaming platforms, because if you know the emotions and mental states of a player, you're able to change the game in real time around them, to self-driving cars, because if someone is having a heart attack or a stroke in a self-driving car and there's only one person in the car, unless you have a sensor that is monitoring their brain, there's no way you would possibly know. All the way to it being used as a replacement for the polygraph within the federal government. And so just to wrap this up, the long-term goal of what we're building is essentially called a human-computer symbiosis, which to us is the ability to use a human brain the way a mouse and a keyboard is used today. So instead of typing or clicking, you simply think or feel, and thoughts and emotions serve as the command and control mechanism of the virtual world. And so the question everyone always asks is, well, how do you go from where you are now to there? And the answer is very simply, of those thousands of muscle fibers, we've biomarked about 1% of them so far. But now that we know how to biomark them, as we biomark more and more of the muscle fibers, we get access to more sections of the brain, and eventually we have the entire brain. But yeah, I'm David, that's Senseye, and if you guys only remember one thing today, we're the guys that can read your brain, and I'm out of time, so. One question? All right. He says I can have more time to answer one question, so. Anyone have a question? No? No questions? That's either really good or, oh, there you go. One brave soul. Okay, he's asking the personal data security question. Are you a lawyer? No? Okay, then I'll give you the honest answer. So the honest answer is we haven't fully thought that through beyond the applications that we've deployed so far. So in the situations where it's being deployed so far, it's either the military using it, and if you're in the military, you have to listen to them, no one cares. Or it's being used in other scenarios such as that. And so a way we've solved for that so far is it's being used in scenarios where you basically have to consent, and we are treating the information that is coming out of the system the same way any other medical information has to be saved. But that's the short answer. When the ACLU comes, we're going to have a much better answer.